r/AskReddit. Those who have been or currently are in the foster care system, what do you wish people knew? I got really lucky and was placed with a decent family that didn't treat me like a second-class citizen. I was family. I've seen horror stories of other places where kids starve or are mistreated in their homes. I had the best possible situation and I won't deny that at all. However, it's still so much to deal with as a small child. Remember when you were a kid and you cried when left at the babysitter's? Imagine going to live at the babysitter's house. My mom wasn't a bad mom. She was a troubled woman trying to get away from an abuser. I was in the home for about half a decade, which is an eternity as a small kid. At 10, half my life had been split between two moms and I wasn't sure what I was allowed to feel. When I finally went back home, would my real mom be upset that I missed my foster mom? Should I talk about missing my old school? The home I stayed at also had upwards of 4 foster kids at a time, who shuffled in and out. A bunch of kids from ages 3 to 16 who had been through some horrendous stuff. And there I was, a broken kid surrounded by other broken kids. It's a hell of an environment, no matter how good the parents are. My mom started doing foster care when I was in middle school. She was a single mother who already had 6 of her own kids, so it was clear to see that she loved children. When I was a senior in high school, she adopted her first foster child, a little girl who came directly to us at 8 days old from the hospital fighting drug addiction. A year and a half later, we had 2 more foster children, a brother and sister, whose parents were in and out of shelters, because they kept robbing others and being kicked out. They still had visitation rights for about a year and a half before one of them came back with a burn on her arm. After that, my mom adopted them as well. Then, my mom got a call that the first child we adopted had a 1-year-old brother in the system. You probably know where this is going. We adopted him as well. About 3 years later, my mom got word that their mother had another child in prison, and before they could even ask, we took her in too. She was a little less than a year at the time, but before she turned 3 we had adopted her as well, increasing the family total to 11. Most people I talk to tell me mom is a saint. I always respond with, she's either that or insane. What I do know is that 3 months ago I watched my 13-year-old sister, who I remember holding while she wrapped tightly in a blanket shaking at 8 days old, sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow as the Dorothy in her middle school play. All I could do not to cry was tell myself that I was sitting front row and she could see me. Then, in the same week, I watched my 11-year-old brother win another wrestling tournament, after which I had to flex on him, to keep him humble. In the end they are all happy, healthy, and when I come home to visit they all run to give me a hug and welcome me back. If you're reading this and you're in the system now and feel like you're in a bad place, I want you to know that there are people out there who will love you and take you in as family. Life can be tough, but you're tougher. Just don't be a dick. Don't get rid of their personal belongings without speaking to them. Sometimes a ratty shirt or a torn-up backpack is all they have left of home. A lot of foster youth have experienced trauma that may or may not affect their behaviors, which is something you have to acknowledge and understand. When a kid does something that seems to make little sense, analyze their actions and try to determine what is going on rather than jumping to the conclusion that the kid is bad or that they are trying to upset you. Additionally, speaking of bad kids, when working with multiple kids, don't idolize one and speak poorly of the others. And don't make assumptions. I was a good kid. I didn't get into trouble and was quiet and got good grades. When I was older, however, they struggled to find a placement. Once I interviewed for a home, kind of. The social worker just brought me to a house to meet the family, but when the family met me they flat out said, openly, that I couldn't live there because, as a foster youth, I would clearly try to seduce their son, 15-16-ish, despite the fact that I was 12, I think, and had no history of acting out sexually. When I did get placements because I was good, the foster parent/s would often speak poorly about the other children to me or around me. When they had guests they would claim themselves martyrs of the bad kids while putting me on a pedestal. While they may have thought they were helping me or raising my confidence, it did not help me trust them and certainly didn't help the kids they bitched about. Edit, TBF, a lot of foster kids act out sexually, even from a young age due to abuse or due to seeing sexual attraction as a form of love and reaching out for anything. Edit, another edit, just to thank you all for your support and the almost complete kindness and respect in this thread. I also want to mention a family that truly sticks in my head because I love them and the memory of them and want someone else to know of their goodness, and want to bring more happiness to this thread. I stayed with a respite care family when my foster family went on vacation and these people were the bomb. They were older, lived in a wonderful relaxing place, and were sensitive to my quirks to the point where I did not feel scared or apprehensive after the first day. I don't remember their names but wish I could. But they told me they couldn't take in foster kids anymore, they were quite old, but every weekend they took in a new respite kid and that they focused on kids that they thought needed more care. I was a young teen, so they probably knew it was hard for me to find a placement. So they had me for a few days and they took me to the store to buy me foods I liked and took me to a historical site and let me near their pets. A lot of my families must have heard horror stories of abusive foster youth and wouldn't let me near their pets or kids, and just nourished me for the few days I was there. When I left they told me I could call them if I ever felt unsafe in my placement, which I regret never doing. Point is, there are good foster care providers. There are good people. And there were a few of them. My husband and I were set to foster. We had done the classes, home study, everything. However, I was diagnosed with cancer and we were unable to complete. We were then denied when we reapplied when I was in remission. I was able to join an organization that partners with foster teens who are aging out of the system to provide mentoring services. I am in HR and I help with resumes, interview prep, job seeking, etc. I am also just an adult who is available to listen. There are ways to support the foster system if you are unable to foster a child. I am so grateful that I am allowed this opportunity. Had a pretty happy family until I was in high school. Played sports, oldest of my siblings, middle class family, no worries. Right before high school my mom and dad got divorced. We stayed with my mom and things went downhill from there. I ended up aging out of foster care. I think some of the most important things some people should realize is that supporting the child during foster care and after they have aged out are key. I was lucky enough to be part of a program where they would give me a stipend every month as long as I was a full-time student or working a full-time job. I can't tell you how critical it was and how beneficial having that extra money to help buy a car, groceries, and an apartment was. Even with no family or safety net I ended up becoming a pretty good functioning member of society. I also want to add that caseworkers are sometimes some of the greatest people on this earth and can really make or break a child's life. From placement into a home, to advocacy for you in family court, to showing you all the resources available to you as a state ward or foster child. The last thing would be that being patient with someone who has gone through that is a big thing. I had no idea what a healthy romantic relationship looked like and had issues with that. Figuring out what a work ethic was, how important insurance was, how to get it, how to get a bank account. Basic everyday life is not easy when you're constantly thinking about if you'll need to pack your things in a trash bag in 5 minutes to go to another house or not. So be patient, hold the person, the child or young adult accountable, and show some love. It'll make a huge difference. Edit. Just wanted to add that vetting families or getting good ones is tough, but needed. The family I stayed with got paid $1,500 plus a month for my brother and I. All we had to eat though was ramen noodles, Hot Pockets, or whatever was left over from their grill outs. Most of the money they received would go to buying hundreds of dollars of barbecue food to cook for their friends every other day or weed. None of that went to buying us new clothes, paying the $10 fees for us to at least play sports still, books, school supplies, toiletries. Nothing. Making sure that the money the families get are actually going to the children's needs would be a big step in the right direction. I was in foster care from when I was 3 until I was 7. Whenever I talk to people about it, they always immediately assume it was terrible. But it really wasn't. For one thing, I was moved between 5 or 6 different houses in that time. And only one of them was actually terrible. The rest of the households were really loving. They generally accepted me as part of the family, and although it was hard to get used to at first, over time it felt like they were my family. Foster parents are unbelievably nice people. The fact that they were so willing to bring these kids they've never met before in, and treat them like family is mind-blowing. Most of the families even let my mom come see us so that way we wouldn't feel bad. Edit. Sorry about not being able to reply to all of you. The reason we were moved around so much was because my older sisters were teenage drug addicts who started fights with a lot of the siblings and parents. That's the most I've been able to gather because my parents won't tell me anymore. Again, I was moved around a majority of the time from when I was 3 to 5. After that, they separated us at the 5th house and that's where I remained until I was 7. I was moved again for about 2 months but I don't know why. After those 2 months, I was reunited with my mom, although it took a few more years before my dad came back. I wish people didn't take for granted the beauty and the importance of found families for people who had to live in foster care. Found family means everything for me. And I feel like people don't appreciate found families a lot. or they take those families very lightly. Edit. Also, people underestimate how awesome a wonderful teacher can be for students. Teachers, if you read this, all I can hope is you don't take pity on foster kids. That happened to me way too often. Just be yourself, and treat me like your other students, please. I was in foster care, on and off, for some of middle/high school. It was whatever, and always a difficult adjustment to living the life I was living, no rules, everyone doing drugs all of the time, and seemingly I'd get more in line and fit in with the family and then get moved back home or with a family member and then it would start again. I want people to know how hard early adulthood is with no family though. I turned 17, got kicked out and was too old to be replaced. I graduated high school living at my boyfriend's parents' house at the time. I had, miraculously, had a teacher who told me I could go to college and he actually helped me make that happen. I mean, this man showed up to my shitty part-time job on the weekends and dropped off food/books/gift cards for gas and helped me fill out a FAFSA and write my admissions essay. He literally changed my life, because he cared. Now I'm adult, 26, and I am still amazed I made it. I don't have kids of my own, but I can't wait to get to the point where I can foster kids. I know what it's like, and sometimes being a foster parent isn't only I'm going to adopt a baby, sometimes it's I'm gonna make sure this angry 16-year-old knows their options for the future and I want to be that person for someone. Edit. Hey y'all, it's super sweet you wanna give me gold and whatnot, but please just donate that money to a charity that means something to you and your people. Also, I'm totally going to send this to my teacher tomorrow and I'm sure he will get a kick out of it. He's retired now, but loves to know he made a difference. Purple Heart.
I'd love it if you liked and subscribed.